she yelled. "Are you dumb? I've been stealing from your company for a year." I said, "I know." When the IRS agent I'd anonymously tipped off walked into her office, she realized I was giving her just enough rope. I, 31 male, run a small logistics company with my business partner, Jerome. We've got about 15 employees, nothing huge, but we do okay. About $3 million in revenue annually. My girlfriend Marlene, 29, started working as our office manager 2 years ago. That's actually how we met. She interviewed for the position, got it on merit, she had great references, and we started dating about 6 months later. I know, don't dip your pen in company ink. But she was genuinely qualified, Jerome liked her, and we kept things professional at work. For a while, it actually worked great. Marlene handled accounts payable, receivables, payroll, basic bookkeeping. She was efficient, organized, and the other employees liked her. We paid her $65 annually, which is decent for our area. Plus, she was dating the co-owner, so she had other perks: company car for personal use, flexible hours, working from home whenever she wanted. About 14 months ago, I noticed something odd. We'd landed this big contract, expected revenue bump of about $400 annually, but our profit margins weren't reflecting it. Jerome and I figured it was just increased operational costs. Maybe we'd underbid. No big deal. Still profitable. Then more little things. Marlene started living larger. Designer bags, expensive jewelry, talking about investments she was making. When I asked about it, she said her grandmother left her some money. Seemed plausible. Her grandmother had passed away 8 months prior. The red flag that made me really look? Our fuel card statements. We have company fuel cards for delivery vehicles. 1 month, I was reviewing expenses and noticed we'd apparently bought diesel in the same hour at 2 stations 200 miles apart. Physically impossible. I started digging quietly. Didn't tell Jerome, didn't confront Marlene, just started reviewing records after hours, comparing invoices to bank statements. What I found was elegant, honestly. She wasn't just skimming, she'd created an entire fake vendor, Riverside Supply Solutions, professional website, business registration, even a dedicated phone line that forwarded to a burner phone. She'd been approving payments to this fake company for consulting services and equipment rentals. Small amounts at first, $2,800 here, $3,500 there. Nothing that would trigger our usual review thresholds. But it added up. In 12 months, she'd stolen approximately $89,000. The smart thing would have been to fire her immediately and press charges. But here's the thing about embezzlement. It's not just theft, it's tax fraud. Every fake invoice she created, every payment she approved, that's a fraudulent business expense we claimed on our taxes. The IRS doesn't care that we were victims. We'd be liable for back taxes, penalties, interest. Plus, I needed solid proof. Corporate embezzlement cases fail all the time because of poor documentation. So I decided to play the long game. I started documenting everything. Screenshots of every fake invoice, copies of endorsed checks, bank records showing deposits into accounts I traced back to her. Set up a hidden camera pointing at her desk, legal in our state for business owners. Even recorded our conversations when she'd casually mention her inheritance, paying for things. After 3 months of this, I had a bulletproof case. That's when I submitted the IRS whistleblower form, anonymous tip about suspected tax fraud at Riverside Supply Solutions. Gave them enough breadcrumbs to investigate, but not enough to immediately trace back to our company. Meanwhile, Marlene got bolder. The amounts increased. $7,000 invoices became $12,000. She started approving them weekly instead of monthly. In her mind, she'd gotten away with it for so long, we must be idiots. 2 weeks ago, she made her biggest move yet. Approved a $23,000 payment for emergency equipment rental, while Jerome and I were at a trade conference. That pushed her total theft over $120,000. When we got back, I casually mentioned we needed to review some expenses. Her response? "Why? You guys never look at anything anyway." I said, "Maybe we should start." She laughed. Actually, laughed. "Are you dumb? I've been stealing from your company for a year. You think you're gonna catch something now?" The recorder in my pocket caught every word. I just looked at her and said, "I know." Her face went white. "What?" "I've known for months, Marlene. I've documented everything." She tried to play it off. "You're bluffing. If you knew, you would have done something. I did do something. I gave you enough rope. What's that supposed to mean? That's when we heard the knock on the door. 2 IRS criminal investigation agents with a warrant. Turns out, when you anonymously report tax fraud and the IRS finds a fake company receiving over $100 in fraudulent payments, they take it very seriously. And when they trace those payments to an individual who hasn't reported that income on their taxes, that's criminal tax evasion. Marlene tried to run, literally tried to bolt out the back door. The agents were expecting that. They arrested her in the parking lot. Update 1. The fallout has been insane. First, Marlene's out on bail, posted by her parents who took out a second mortgage. She's facing federal charges for tax evasion, wire fraud, and money laundering. Her lawyer reached out trying to negotiate a plea deal where she'd pay restitution and avoid jail time. The IRS laughed. Apparently, creating a fake company and running it for over a year shows sophisticated criminal intent. But here's where her entitlement really showed. She called me from her parents' phone. I'd blocked her number, crying about how I'd ruined her life. Marlene, how could you do this to me? We were in love. Me, you stole over $120,000 from my company. It's just money. You make millions. I deserved more than $65 for everything I did. You mean your job? That you were paid to do? I made your life easier. I handled everything. I deserved a share of the profits. You had a salary. That's your share. You're really going to let me go to prison over this? I'm not letting you do anything. You committed federal crimes. Then came the guilt trips from her family. Her mother called Jerome, since I wouldn't answer, saying we were heartless for involving the IRS instead of handling it privately. Her father sent an email offering to pay back $50,000 if we dropped everything. Like that's how federal charges work. You can just call them off like a dinner reservation. The best part? Marlene tried to throw me under the bus. Told the IRS I knew about the fake vendor and was in on it. That we were stealing together and I was setting her up to take the fall. Thank God for documentation. I showed them 6 months of evidence gathering, the recorded confession, proof that I'd never accessed the Riverside accounts. My lawyer also pointed out that if I was involved, why would I report it? But Marlene wasn't done being entitled. She filed for unemployment. Claimed she was wrongfully terminated. The unemployment office called for verification, and I sent them the arrest record and charges. Claim denied. Then she tried to claim workers' comp for stress-induced illness from a hostile work environment. Her evidence? The fact that I'd been cold and distant the last few months before her arrest. Yeah, no kidding. You were stealing from me. Jerome's been cool through all this. He was pissed I didn't tell him earlier, but understood why I needed solid evidence. We've hired a forensic accountant to review everything, make sure we didn't miss anything else she took. Turns out, we did miss something. She'd also been selling our client information to competitors. Nothing huge, just contact lists and pricing structures, but probably another $10,000 in kickbacks she didn't report. The IRS amended the charges. Her arraignment is next week. Her lawyer's pushing for house arrest with monitoring. The prosecutor's pushing for 3 to 5 years federal prison. We'll see. Update 2. The entitlement escalated to levels I didn't think were possible. Marlene's parents hired a new lawyer, some hotshot who specializes in white-collar crime. This guy immediately went on the offensive, trying to paint Marlene as a victim of manipulation and workplace exploitation. Their new strategy? Claimed she was coerced into a relationship with me, her boss, and the theft was actually unauthorized compensation for sexual harassment. They filed a civil suit against me personally and the company for $500. My lawyer laughed so hard he actually cried. We have 2 years of text messages showing she pursued me. Plus, multiple employees gave statements that our relationship was consensual and that Marlene often bragged about dating the boss. But the real kicker came during discovery for the civil case. Marlene's lawyer demanded access to all company records to prove systemic wage theft and exploitation. The judge granted limited access, supervised by a court-appointed accountant. You know what that accountant found? Marlene had stolen an additional $34,000 we hadn't discovered. She'd been cutting checks to herself for overtime that she never worked, using a signature stamp she wasn't supposed to have access to. The accountant immediately reported this to the IRS and the federal prosecutor. Her lawyer tried to withdraw from the case. The judge wouldn't let him. Then, Marlene did something spectacularly stupid. She violated her bail conditions by trying to contact a witness, specifically our receptionist Kendra, who'd agreed to testify about the fake invoices she'd seen Marlene creating. Marlene showed up at Kendra's apartment at 11 p.m., drunk, screaming about loyalty and snitches. Kendra called the cops. Marlene was arrested again, bail revoked. She's been in federal detention for the past week. Her parents are now trying to sue ME for destroying their family. They claim I should have just fired her quietly and let them pay restitution. They're seeking damages for emotional distress and the loss of their home equity from the bail they posted and lost. My lawyer countered with a defamation suit for the false sexual harassment claims. He also pointed out that harboring a federal criminal, which they did when she initially hid at their house, is itself a crime. They dropped their suit within 48 hours. But the saga wasn't over. Marlene, from jail, somehow convinced her cellmate to call me pretending to be a reporter. This woman called saying she was from a local paper doing a story on small business fraud. Started asking leading questions about vengeful business owners and abuse of power. I was suspicious, so I said I'd only talk through my lawyer. The reporter immediately hung up. Did some digging? No such reporter exists. The number traced back to a burner phone purchased the day before. Marlene's going to trial next month. The prosecutor added witness tampering and obstruction of justice to her charges. She's now looking at 5 to 8 years minimum. Final update. The trial was last week. It lasted 3 days and was somehow both boring and infuriating. Marlene showed up in court looking like she was going to church, conservative dress, minimal makeup, trying to look innocent. Her lawyer's strategy was basically to admit the theft but argue for leniency because she was a first-time offender who made a mistake in a moment of financial desperation. Financial desperation? She drove a BMW and lived in a luxury apartment. The prosecution presented everything methodically. The fake vendor, the forged documents, the recorded confession, the witness tampering. They even brought in a forensic accountant who explained exactly how sophisticated her scheme was. Then Marlene took the stand. Against her lawyer's advice, apparently. She wanted to tell her side. Her side was that she deserved the money because she was basically running the company, and I was too cheap to pay her what she was worth. She claimed the fake vendor was just creative bonus structuring that she planned to report on her taxes eventually. She actually said, with a straight face, that she was teaching me a lesson about proper compensation. The prosecutor asked her one question on cross-examination. So you're saying you stole $154,000 to teach your boyfriend a lesson about pay? Marlene, it wasn't stealing. It was taking what I earned. The jury deliberated for 2 hours, guilty on all counts. At sentencing, Marlene's parents begged for mercy. Her mother actually blamed me in court, saying if I had just married her like she expected, none of this would have happened. The judge was not impressed. Marlene got 6 years federal prison, 3 years supervised release, and ordered to pay full restitution plus penalties, total of $243,000. She'll probably serve 4 to 5 years with good behavior. Her last words to me as they let her out? This isn't over. Actually, it is. The companies filed a civil suit to recover the additional losses not covered by restitution. Her parents' house, which they mortgaged for bail, is being foreclosed on. Marlene's professional reputation is destroyed. She'll never work in finance again. And she's a convicted felon. The company's doing fine. We hired a new office manager, a 58-year-old woman named Dolores, who's been doing this for 30 years and has zero interest in drama. Jerome insisted on implementing new controls, dual approval for all payments over $5, monthly audits, and segregation of duties. Should have done that from the start. The IRS whistleblower program? They have this thing where if your tip leads to a recovery over $2 million in taxes, penalties, and interest, you get 15 to 30% of what they collect. The IRS is going after Marlene for about $400 total, taxes on unreported income plus penalties and interest. If they collect it all, I might get around $80. I'm using it to upgrade our accounting systems and hire an external audit firm. Lessons learned. 1. Trust but verify, always. 2. Don't date coworkers, especially ones with access to money. 3. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. 4. The IRS doesn't play around with tax fraud. 5. Document everything. Marlene thought she was smart, smarter than everyone else. She thought she'd found the perfect crime, and that we were too stupid to notice. Even when caught, she felt entitled to what she stole. Now she's learning that orange jumpsuits don't come in designer brands. Jerome and I are still friends and business partners. The company actually had its best quarter ever. Turns out, when you're not bleeding money to a thief, profits improve. Who knew? I'm dating again. Someone who works in healthcare, far away from my company. She thinks the whole story is insane. She's right. That's all, folks. Don't steal from your employer, especially if you're dating them. And definitely don't brag about it.